also says people should be careful that heavy furniture in offices and houses may have shifted and may present a hazard. The company that operates the electricity network in central Canterbury says it will be at least a couple of hours before it can restore power that's out after the earthquake.
Look at that shelf
The chief
out
executive of Orion New Zealand, Roger Sutton, says large areas of the city do not have power. He says it's impossible to get around and look at the damage, and that means the company can't tell if it's safe to restore power or not.
We've got really damaged plant out there. If we reliven it remotely, then we risk damaging it. And I guess there's also the issue if there's, properties around that have got gas leaks or whatever. We really like reliven properties with gas leaks, we risk fire.
Roger Sutton says he hopes to have a clearer idea of the damage by 5 p.m. He says every effort is being taken to get power back up by nightfall. Christchurch Hospital remains open. 3 wards have been evacuated and the emergency department is operating, but on a limited capacity as part of it was damaged. People with major injuries or who are trapped need to dial 111 and persevere because the phone lines are congested. Christchurch Airport has been closed because of suspected damage. Kiwi Rail says the Trans-Alpine service has been stopped at Greymouth and the Trans-Coastal has stopped at Picton. The Ferrymead Bridge is reported to be impassable because of rising water. Radio New Zealand listeners report water cylinders leaking in houses, whole houses ruined and contents devastated. Matthew Carpenter of the Canterbury Business Recovery Network says traffic is gridlocked leaving the city and it's slow in the other direction with liquefaction around the river.
Like the whole of Christchurch is sitting on a big soup of jelly at the moment, and every now and then we get another shake to remind us how fragile the town is. I would say, without a understatement, the whole structural integrity of Christchurch has been shaken down.
Matthew Carpenter says it's difficult to envisage what the future holds for Christchurch. Vodafone is advising its customers to text, but not telephone friends and family as it grapples with power cuts and fallen cell phone towers. Its spokesperson Michelle Bagley says 8 of its cell phone towers have come down and a large number of sites are running on backup power. Ms. Bagley says people are being encouraged to avoid overloading the network. A Christchurch City Councillor Barry Corbett is advising people in earthquake-stricken areas to head towards home or to a pre-arranged emergency meeting place.
What we've said to all council staff and everybody that's just kind of hanging around the streets, get home. I mean, in my case, my car park is right underneath the building, so I don't think I'll be moving the car for a few weeks. So it's going to be a long walk up the hill. But that's, I think, everybody should get home or head to the place they've set up as their earthquake one.
Barry Corbett says there's much damage around the streets in the centre of the city with pipes and some of the roads ripped up. And that's the news.
Thank you, Hughes. You're listening to Checkpoint with Mary Wilson and Susie Ferguson. Rolling news coverage on the quake this afternoon, 6.3 at Christchurch shortly before 1 o'clock. An emergency cabinet meeting is being held at Parliament this afternoon as reports begin to come in of the damage in Canterbury caused by this afternoon's earthquake. Parliament sat briefly at 2 o'clock when MPs expressed their support for the people of Canterbury. Speaking afterwards, the Prime Minister John Key told reporters there is significant damage.
The people that we speak to on the ground there told us the buildings that were repaired very recently have collapsed again, that there's been significant damage to major buildings, not just the cathedral, but widespread damage.
There's a huge shift out in the bay there. There's like a shelf where there wasn't an obvious one before.
The first earthquake, there's been substantial.
Probably can't see it.
We're hearing substantial damage to residential houses too. Are you hearing that?
Yes, but we don't have accurate information at the moment.
Police have said that there are fatalities. Have you got any message for those families?
Look, obviously, if when I receive official advice that the big fatalities, my heart and thoughts and prayers would go to those families. I think we all knew that we were very lucky and blessed when the first earthquake took place. It didn't claim any lives. If it's the case that people have lost their life in this earthquake, then I think all New Zealanders would mourn with a heavy heart.
Can you give us a picture, an overall view of the sort of extent of the damage that you imagine, or what you've had of it in terms of roads, housing, and
well, the anecdotal reports we've had is that there's significant damage to roading and sewage. There's been liquefactions taking place again that's likely to cause, again, like it did last time, substantial damage to housing and to core infrastructure. It appears that there's significant, at least surface damage to buildings, and that may be as a result of the fact that they're in a weakened state. Iconic buildings like the Canterbury Cathedral have clearly suffered significant damage from the media footage that we've seen so far. So this is really a situation where not only is it a significant earthquake that's shallow in nature, but it's taking place in a very busy time and on the back of what has not only just been one earthquake, but the 4,000 aftershocks that Canterbury has experienced in the last 6 months. So it's struck at a very vulnerable time for the region. I have. I rang her. I couldn't get hold of her straight away, but she did ring me back. She was extremely shaken. She said that it was actually worse than the first earthquake.
We had army presence up here.
Her son, but not her husband.
Oh man, the power line is down.
It was just absolute carnage. There was water everywhere, sewage flowing down the streets, and the roads were in gridlock.
That's the Prime Minister, John Key. 3:09 now. A recap on what the police are saying now about the earthquake. They are saying that there have been multiple fatalities reported at several locations in the central city, including 2 buses crushed by falling buildings. A doctor and emergency services are attending. Other reports include multiple building collapses, fires in buildings in the central city, and persons reported trapped in buildings. All available police staff are assisting with evacuations and emergency responses. Christchurch Hospital is not evacuated and is in operation. That Christchurch Hospital is not evacuated, it is operating, and no injuries reported at Christchurch Airport. We were speaking to someone earlier about that. Defence forces have been called in to assist. Now, there are some important messages from the police about triage centres which have been established for people with injuries. You can go to Latimer Square in the central city. That's Latimer Square in the central city, Spotlight Mall in Sydenham, Spotlight Mall in Sydenham, Sanitarium at Papanui. That's Sanitarium at Papanui. Those people who have been injured, that's where triage centres have been established. Police are also saying that people who have evacuated their homes or buildings should report to their nearest civil defence sector post. That will usually be your local school, and they'll be putting out further updates when they have them available. Well, the Civil Defence Controller for the Selwyn District is Douglas Marshall, and he's with us now. Hi there, Douglas.
G'day, how are you?
What's the damage there?
We're very fortunate in Selwyn. All our core services appear to have escaped. We're on the fringes of Christchurch, for the listeners who don't appreciate that. And we have some limited outages in our areas of Lincoln and Prebbleton. Power does seem to be out in that area, but very fortunate in our district compared to obviously what's happened in Christchurch.
So virtually no reports of any damage to homes?
That's correct. Well, homes, but unsure at this time, but certainly in terms of infrastructure. I mean, like I'm here in Rolleston, power's working in Rolleston. Our phones are a bit intermittent into Christchurch though, but certainly power's up and running, and our main services are certainly continuing to work.
All right, and your advice to your locals then is what?
Well, I think if you can at all possible keep your communication on phones to a minimum, because there's obviously a lot of people who need to make contact with ones in Christchurch. That can be minimised. Obviously, try and avoid travel if at all possible, and particularly into central Christchurch, unless you've got a real urgent need to travel. Certainly, people need to be very careful where power outages are out in terms of lines, and obviously be very careful with if there's a need for cooking to use open flame. Need to be very careful those sort of things if power is out for any time. Just really those keep safe messages and look after your neighbours and your friends, really, really important this time.
What was the shake like where you were?
It was certainly it was a big shake, and it was a long shake, and I would certainly describe it as one of those ones you knew it was building and it was coming, and we've got a reasonably modern building here in Rolleston, and it did sort of a really good shaking for it. I mean, we didn't lose, things haven't fallen off shelves in that here in our building, so it's stood, but yeah, it was certainly something really, really, really impressive.
Thank you, Douglas. We'll let you get back to it. That is Douglas Marshall. He's a Civil Defence Controller for the Selwyn District. And we're joined now by the Mayor of Christchurch, Bob Parker. Good afternoon, Mr. Parker.
Hi.
Now, I understand that, amongst other things, some temporary accommodation is now being erected and sorted out for people who may find themselves homeless today.
Yes, there's no doubt that we're going to have a
3 hours.
significant number of homeless people in our city. The reports are coming through from across the city. We still have yet to hear any reports in from Banks Peninsula, and I'm very, very concerned about that. The epicenter of the earthquake was in Littleton Harbour. There are hills covered with rocks. Those rocks will have come down. The damage in the centre of the city is,
The rocks came down.
what I can see at the moment, is immense, and I've had reports in from areas in the suburban parts of the city that really were unscathed in the earlier major shake in September that have taken significant damage. I was just talking to one of our own civil defence personnel here whose house, relatively unscathed in the first shake, has now completely collapsed. I've got reports of buses that are trapped under fallen buildings, car park buildings that have taken significant damage, collapse or partial collapse. Some of the inner city streets, we have people trapped in buildings, and everybody needs to understand that this is going to be a day of very black news that will come from this severely shaken city today. And there are some important messages that I need to get out over your system, if I may, and that is that I have declared a local state of emergency, and I know that the Prime Minister is on his way here. This city is going to need help from other places around New Zealand, and we'll be contacting all of those emergency services and local authorities and asking for that help in the coming hours. We've set up our emergency operations centre in the earthquake-proof gallery in the heart of...
I don't know the alarm. They never gave us the alarm code. Oh, the computer fell over. Oh my word. That's pretty exciting. Wow, refrigerator's open. Computer's over. Room looks about the same. Oh. Yep. Paul got off pretty late. Gosh, this is nuts. This is totally nuts. It's all looking pretty good. It's all looking real good. I don't think we have any power. I wonder if we have any water. Oh, that doesn't look good. That's all bent. Does not smell very good in here. Oh, busted bottles everywhere. It looks like most of the scotch survived. Maybe get these doors shut. So this stuff will hold on to what it's got. Beer, you don't matter. Gosh. Well, here we go.